Hello, welcome. We are going to talk about psycho-cybernetics today. What does that mean, right? We're going to talk about psycho-cybernetics and guided imagery. And how I learned about this was about 2014, I think it was. I love self-development books and speakers like Jim Rohn, um, Bob Proctor, Andrew Carnegie, Napoleon Hill. I was stuck on those books. And so Bob Proctor is actually the one who introduced me to this idea of psycho-cybernetics. But it took me a little while to understand what he was talking about. But when I understood, I'll tell you what, my life started changing. And then a while later, I learned about guided imagery. Now, it's really interesting because I actually was using guided imagery on my own, not knowing exactly that it was a thing that other people were doing. And then I found my mentor, Ali Duzette, in 2000. It was either 2018 or 2019. So I had been using Psycho-Cybernetics for about 4 years, and I had been using my own form of guided imagery, but Ali was the one who really, she put this clear picture in my mind of what guided imagery could do for my life. And so I've got to get credit to her. But what is psycho-cybernetics? Let's go. Okay, so first off, I want to talk about SMART goals. Right now, as of the time of me filming this, it is January 20th. So it's still pretty close to the start of the new year. And at this time, I'm sure that many of you, if you're watching this live, feel that maybe if you set some New Year's goals or New Year's resolutions, you've probably already given up on them, right? Who does that? Everyone. Why? Because goals are hard, right? But no, to be honest, SMART goals, I learned about this. I might have been in high school, but I definitely spent a lot of time on SMART goals when I was in college. And I would write them out and I would have all of the best intentions and I never went after them. Very, very, very rarely when I used this SMART method would I actually meet my goal. And everyone's like, SMART goals are the way to go, right? It's specific, it's measurable, it's attainable, relevant, and time-based. And they say that 60% or more of people won't write their goal down, but of the 40% or less who do, they have almost a 90% chance higher probability that they're going to attain that goal. And so I would write them down because I knew that statistic and I was like, I am going to meet this goal. And it just wouldn't happen. And I was a go-getter when I was in college. I was a really driven, like goal-oriented kind of person. I was working and had a full-time 16 plus credit schedule and doing a whole bunch of volunteer work on top of that. And it was just like, I was a go-getter. I also was teaching college classes while I was going to college. Crazy, I know, right? But I did. And it just, you would think that on the outside, looking at everything that I was doing, that if I wrote a goal down, I would be able to meet it. But a lot of the things that I wanted personally in my life that I was using this SMART attempt to go after, I just wasn't seeing it happen. And it was when I learned about psycho-cybernetics that my mind was unlocked. And it was like a key to my mind, right? So I say that SMART goals are dumb because most people don't have the functionality in their brain. They don't use, I don't use my brain. That's why I wrote the acronym for dumb. The acronym for dumb is don't use my brain beliefs. That's what psycho-cybernetics is about, is the subconscious and unconscious beliefs you've got going on. So SMART goals, sometimes they can be helpful in that they break down the goal from beginning to end and give you benchmarks to get there. With um, the measurable and attainable part of it, and then also the time-based, kind of like, "I need to get this step done by this amount of time." So it can be helpful, but if you are like me and you feel like you know in your head that this should be working, these SMART goals, but they're just not working, then it might be because of Psycho-Cybernetics. So before we talk about what Psycho-Cybernetics is exactly, I want to talk about how your brain was designed to keep you safe. So this might not be news to you, but we are born into these physical bodies that have limits. And as a human being or a living conscious being on Earth, there's a primitive part of us that is always on the lookout for danger, right? So we have this little thing in our brain called the amygdala, and it is constantly it's always searching for danger, right? So we don't necessarily have a cheetah lurking after us these days, but we have something called epigenetics. And what epigenetics are, this is actually proven science now. Um, they've studied babies that were born around the time of the Holocaust. So they were in their mother's wombs while all of that was going on. Especially babies who were in Europe or mothers who were in concentration camps or hiding out during that time period, they have genetic factors that have been proven by science that were not there in the generations before them. So the trauma that their parents were suffering through actually changed their genetic design when they were born. And so your thoughts are all encoded in your DNA. When you have a thought in your mind, it causes a chemical reaction to occur. And those chemicals are sent out through your body via your nervous system, right? So if your brain has this clogged up system of danger, danger, danger from your ancestors, then when you go to set goals in your life in this day and age and you have different dangers presented in front of you, you're going to have the problem of dealing with all of that generational stuff if it hasn't been worked through on top of your own stuff. And it's subconscious and unconscious. So it's buried deep down inside of your DNA. And it literally will change the way your thoughts come. And it's just, there's a whole process that you have to go through to release those chemicals and rewire your brain structure so that you can create new pathways to have thoughts that you normally wouldn't think. And we're going to talk about that with the psycho-cybernetics. But yeah, our brain is designed to keep us safe. Um, I am having ringing in my ears right now, which means I'm receiving a download. Hold on. I'm going to keep going, but okay, so the next thing that our brain is like is a search engine. So, you might have heard people say that the brain is like a computer or things like that, but it is like a search engine. And so I want you to think about if you wake up to an alarm in the morning. Hold on just a sec. Sorry. I had a pop-up on my computer asking me if I was still there. Um, so your brain is like a search engine. When you wake up in the morning, if you wake up to an alarm, what is the first thing that your brain does? If you're like most people, when your alarm goes off in the morning, you are probably thinking about hitting the snooze button and how far can I go before I have to leave, or I'm going to be late for work, or I'm going to be late for school, or whatever it is that you have to do to get the kids to school, whatever it is, right? Most people, when they wake up in the morning, the first thought that comes to them is, how much time can I spare before what's the danger? If I don't get to work, I'm going to lose my job. If I don't get my kids to school, they're going to be marked tardy or truant, and that could get us into trouble. I don't know. There's so many things that could come up, right? So already, first thing in the morning, before anything else happens, your alarm goes off, and there's the question that you're typing into your Google search image in your mind, right? So if you think about that, and then you are the next thing that what okay, so let me be really clear about this. I want to clarify this. When you do that, when you hit the snooze button and you're wondering, how long can I go before dot dot dot, the question you are typing into your search image or your search engine in your brain is, um, am I going to be late? Right? Because you're the goal is to not be late, but the brain is thinking, I've got to do everything I can to not be late. And so your brain is focused on being late, right? I hope that makes sense. The brain has a really hard time understanding negatives. So when you say, I don't want to be late, your brain hears be late. Or, I don't know, you can use your imagination and come up with other ideas like that. But, so when you're pushing the snooze button in the morning and thinking about how long you can sleep in, your brain is already searching for ways to be late. I don't know about you, but I used to be late all the time because that's the question that I was asking. So when we start changing the question that we're asking subconsciously, the results we're receiving start changing. So when I started getting to bed on time and I wasn't hitting the snooze button the next morning, but instead I was thinking about how excited I was about my day when I woke up and what the first thing was that I wanted to do, then I stopped being late to my appointments. It's so crazy. I don't remember the last time I was late to something. I have 3 kids that I have to get ready in addition to myself. They are all 7 years and younger, so my 7-year-old's starting to get to be a little bit more independent, but, I mean, I'm getting myself and 3 other people ready and out the door, and we're still on time because I started changing the questions that I was asking first thing in the morning. But I will tell you, for the longest time, I was notoriously late to everything because these were the types of questions that I was asking, like just how can I just slide by? How can I get away with the most of my desire instead of, um, trying to be early, or I don't know. It just it's a thing. When you start paying attention to the brain questions that you're asking on a moment by moment basis, you will be surprised at how the answers are coming to you. All right. So, you have a thermostat in your brain. And that is what psycho-cybernetics are. We're gonna talk about it now. Yay! What is this weird word? Okay, so psycho, psyche, psychic, it's all things of the mind, right? So psycho-cybernetics, the cybernetics part is, it's like a thermostat. It's, a setting in your brain that causes the results of everything around you, right? So how does a thermostat work? You, the human that is in control, go up and you push a button and you tell it that you want the average temperature in the room that this thermostat is controlling or connected to be a certain degree. So say that we're setting it to 70 degrees. So you go up and you hit the button, doot, 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 70 degrees. And what happens if it's cold outside and the room starts kind of feeling a little bit drafty? Then the thermostat says, hey, it's getting a little bit chilly in this room. And it kicks on the heater. And then it stabilizes the temperature or the atmosphere in the room, right? If it's hot outside and you've got your thermostat set to 70 degrees and it starts getting a little bit warm in the room that you're in, it kicks on the air conditioning and cools it back down, right? And it has kind of like It doesn't mean that it stays at exactly 70 degrees all the time, but it tries to keep that average. So it might get a few degrees one direction or the other, but it tries to keep it in that zone about hopefully not more than 5 degrees one direction or the other. Most thermostats in the smart homes that we have today are pretty good at like a 2 degree one or the other. So, but how does this work in your brain? So remember those epigenetics that we talked about in your DNA? And so you can think about your caveman ancestors that were always on the lookout for danger. And so how does that present in your life today? Um, how many of you, by raise of hand, have ever felt like this, you just, all of these little things are causing anxiety to come up inside of you? And you can just be set off by the littlest things. And it's not like there's any actual real danger, but your body has a somatic reaction as if there is an actual threat, right? All the time. Like, we have more mental health issues of depression and anxiety in this day and age than in the history of recorded mental health issues. And we have probably way less dangers than in the history of humanity on Earth. Why are we so stressed out? Well, I think part of it is because we have generations upon generations upon generations of these epigenetics that are telling us that the world is a dangerous place. I think there's a lot more going on there than that. I think that all of the information that we have coming into us also has something to do with it. So it's not just epigenetics, but I do think epigenetics play a huge role in it. The other thing that we have is access to worldwide news on a 24/7 basis. Never, ever in the history of the world have people been able to access a worldwide data of information. We have information at our fingertips like our ancestors could never have dreamed of. It is insane the amount of information we can access in a matter of moments just scrolling through our media, right? Whoa. Crazy. People used to have to wait for months to hear about news that had happened on the other side of the world. By the time that the news got to them, it was no longer news. But we have it in a matter of seconds, right? So, whoa, the brain is like, this is a really scary, dangerous place. When you're connected all the time, it is just being inundated with danger, 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 right? So that's another huge thing that is happening in our modern day and age. Our children are learning things at a more rapid rate than ever before. They're hearing about things at a younger age than they've ever heard about these things before. It seems like a really dangerous, scary place, right? So, what happens is you have beliefs that start taking place, especially in the ages um, from the time that a child starts picking up language. So, about most kids by like 6 months, 9 months in that area, they start learning the patterns of language and hearing tones around them. And then until about 12 years of age is just a rapid onslaught of information just soaking up like a sponge in their brain. And what happens is during those really early years, they start developing beliefs about the world around them. And so if you've got a family situation that is really, really stressful, even though you don't have the language to explain what you are experiencing, the chemical reactions are happening and it is causing emotion. And those emotions that are happening in your body, the chemical emotions, are programming your mind and telling you the story of what the world around you is. And most of us have it wrong. I'm just going to say that. Most of us are not very good at such a young age of actually defining what is happening in the world around us. And a lot of it is scary. It's just And then we deal with that for the rest of our lives. And then it doesn't end there because bam, let's start puberty right after you get through all of that development at a young age. Your body starts changing. Um, Different chemical reactions start happening that weren't happening before. You're It's just way, way different, right? The body's like, whoa, 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 this is intense. It's a roller coaster ride every day. Everyone hates me. Nobody understands me. All of the things, right? And so you start developing even more of those ideas and beliefs about life around you. And at that age, you are more cognizant of what is happening with the adults in your life, and you have words and ideas about the things that they're going through. And so you form even more ideas about the world and life, right? So when you're in your 20s to 30s, this is when most people kind of have, they get kicked out of the nest and they get to test whether the beliefs that they've built up through their life are true or not. And a lot of people around the time of their late 20s, early 30s, you can kind of see that they start becoming their own people. They've used the scientific method on their theories or their beliefs in their brain, right? And they've learned, hey, some of the things that I thought about this world as a child aren't actually the way that I thought they were. And so they start forming new ideas, right? And but you can see that this is kind of where um a culling kind of starts happening. You will see that there are people who just seem to kind of be stuck in like their high school or college career, and they never really move on from that. And then there are other people who they just kind of live a normal life, and like they're moving on a little bit. There's a little bit of progress there, but it's more than the kids who are still working at McDonald's in their 30s, but they're not really climbing the corporate ladder. They might own a house, they might not. They're still renting. It's just they there's progress, but it's not they're not the CEO of the company and all of these things. So and then you've got the people who are just killing it, like they're crushing every goal, they're on top of the corporate ladder, they're ringing the bell on Wall Street, right? And so why does that happen? It's because of this internal thermostat, and it is what the beliefs are set at. So a really, really good example of this is people who lose weight. So a person with when you're thinking about psycho-cybernetics and you think about a person who has been on the heavier side all through their life, and when they're an adult, they're probably in their like high 200s to low 300s. I'm American, so we use pounds. But they go on a diet and they start losing weight, and everybody's looking at them and saying, "Hey, Jerry, what are you doing? You look great." They're noticing the change that is happening. Meanwhile, when this person looks in the mirror, they don't feel like they see themselves any differently than they did before. And so they might lose like 50 to 70 pounds, but sure enough, in a few months, it starts creeping back on. And then before they know it, they're back to where they started, right? I'm sure that maybe you are one of these people, but I'm sure you know people in your life who are always on a diet and they can never get to their goal. Even when they set a SMART goal, right? SMART goals don't always work. And this is why Psycho-Cybernetics, because that person's thermostat is set at a certain range. So depending on how wide their range is how much weight they will allow themselves to lose before they'll start packing it on again. And most people won't let themselves go higher than a certain number. So same thing with money. I don't know about you, but for the longest time, I had honestly, before I got married, I always had $1,000 in my bank account. It just that's who it, I didn't I didn't even think about it. There was just always $1,000 in my bank account. It never dipped under $1,000. And then I got married and it was like we could not keep up. And I just, for a few years there, I was like, what is going on? I've always had at least $1,000 in my bank account and we have nothing. And I don't know why. And I don't know where it's going. And because my husband had a different setting than I did, and his setting, I guess you would call it, was stronger than mine was. And so it would it would flow into what his energy was instead of what my energy was. Um, so what do you do to change the setting on your internal thermostat? You change your beliefs. Well, that's kind of hard to do, right? You can't just I believe because what that's just like a SMART goal. What happened with me with SMART goals, going back to that Google search image that we were talking about earlier, when I would set a SMART goal, my brain was like, "Oh, this is what you want to do? Well, let me tell you all the reasons why that is not going to happen." Because my search engine question was, "Why do I not have this yet?" When I would set a goal, my brain was like, girl, you don't have this yet. Why?" And then it would look for all of the reasons. So instead of hitting my goal, I was sabotaging myself with all of the reasons of why I didn't already have it. So guided imagery is one of the tools that I have found is the best way to set this thermostat at a different setting. And the reason that I have found is because the brain works with your imagination. Can you think about dreams? When you go to sleep at night, why do you dream? Because that's your body's way of processing what is happening to you in your life, right? The brain is it uses imagination to process this stuff. Um, guided imagery, I've been using it through this whole lecture. So we're about I think almost half an hour in and I'm almost done, but what images have I used in this lecture? We talked about a thermostat. We talked about a Google search engine. Um, let's see. I can't remember if we kind of talked about dangers with like the cheetah, or yeah, it was a cheetah, not a leopard that I showed. So I told you about how Psycho-Cybernetics is like a thermostat on the wall, and the button that you push to change the setting is the belief that is in your brain, and it's subconscious or unconscious. So how do you change the belief? Well, one way is by asking different questions. So, what I recommend doing is actually pulling out a journal and thinking about what the first thing is that pops into your mind when you wake up in the morning. And then, what I recommend doing is if you use your phone, um, I don't I don't believe that keeping your phone in your bedroom is a healthy habit. But I would recommend turn your phone up really loud and put it in a different room and put an alarm on it that has a question, like the type of question that you would like to start your day with. So then when your alarm goes off in the morning, you put that question as the label for your alarm, and it's the first alarm that will alert you in the day. And so um when your alarm goes off, you get up because you have to get up and walk across the house to get your phone, right? And now you're awake because you had to take that walk across the house. And you look down at your phone to turn your alarm off. And what does it say? It's got your question right there. And that way, you're not thinking about, oh, how can I snooze this and get more sleep? You're thinking about whatever the question is that you want. So I don't know. You can decide what you want your question to be, right? But um and then it is like the image of hitting that button and changing that thermostat. Um you could I do this with my goals all the time. Imagine what I want to happen and kind of check within myself of where I feel I imagine it as a thermometer. And so it's like wherever the mercury is in the thermometer, if it's like not likely, maybe, check again, come back later, could happen, possibly, probably, like all of the heights that this mercury could rise to. And I try to get it up, or you could do it in percentages, like 10%, 20% of likeliness to happen, um, and get it cruised on all the way up to 100% if you can. So there's another image. So these are imaginary images that we are using to say, hey, brain, we're going to tweak something a little bit. And then what starts happening is when you start believing different things, you start adopting different beliefs, it literally creates a new connection in your brain. Like your brain will rewire itself. And so when the threat comes up, your brain's like, oh, this is the new program. And so your brain doesn't go danger, danger, danger anymore. It says, this is what we believe. And then you start acting according to the belief. So that is what Psycho-Cybernetics is. I'm trying to remember if I've got, nope, that is my last slide. So let me check really quick if there was anything else that I was going to talk about. Guided imagery. Let's see. Oh, the last thing. Okay. I love the scriptures. So whether you are a religious person or not, it's okay. You're not going to offend me. And I am not trying to offend you by talking about this. But the scriptures, God uses guided imagery all the time. Why? Because he designed our brains. He knows how they work. And he tells us to feast on the word, right? Take your daily bread. What does that mean? It means you cannot live by bread alone. You've got to be in those scriptures every day, he says. Every day. Why? Because when you start opening your scriptures up and actually like going through them, reading them and studying them, you're going to start seeing images. How did Jesus teach? Through parables, guided imagery, right? Why? Last thing I'm going to say about this. There's a word, archetype. It is a symbol that people can hear the idea, multiple different people, and their brain will take what they are bringing from it. So that's why when Jesus talks about the parables, he says that some will listen and hear nothing, and others will learn and grow from it. And they're the ones who are prepared to hear the message. And when you listen to a parable with a group of 5 friends, and then you talk about the parable after you've listened to it, you're like, whoa, this person got that, and I didn't even think about that. And this is the message that I heard. And it's almost like you each received your own individual message. That's the way that the Holy Ghost teaches. And so God uses archetypes or images or symbols. They all mean the same thing. An archetype is a symbol that every person listening can garner their own idea from, right? And so when you use guided imagery, what you have prepared through your life is what you will be prepared to take away from it. So I'm going to use the image of a pendulum. A pendulum can swing so far, right? And then it'll swing that far in the opposite direction, but it won't swing further in the opposite direction, right? And so in the scriptures, it says that Jesus, he gained wisdom and stature and there's 4 things. It was his physical, his mind, his spirit, and I'm going to have to look up and see what the 4th one was because it's not coming to my mind right now. But the point is, he learned, right? He was seeking knowledge. And so in your life, the more effort you put into something, the more you're going to get back from it. As far as the pendulum swings, as much sorrow as you've experienced, you have the capacity to experience that much joy, because it's a universal law that there is opposition in all things, right? And that's how guided imagery works. So, repetition is the key to guided imagery. Why? Because every time you go over that image again, your brain is going to take the experiences that you've had in the time since the last time you went through that image, and it's going to apply. And I love going through guided imagery on, like, going through the same images multiple times, like every day for a month, I would say. Why? Because it gives you a really short time frame to present ideas against the image. So that is like rewiring your brain so fast, because you're like, oh, here's an image. This is the idea that I'm getting from it. And now I'm having an experience 24 hours later, but I'm listening to the image again, and my brain says, oh, I just experienced that. What I thought about that isn't true. Let me rewire that into what this image is telling me. And so then 24 hours later, you have another experience that within 24 hours you go through the image again, and your brain is like, oh, every time you do that. So repetition, this is the reason that we are told to read the scriptures every day. And you're like, I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So we have 4 canonized books of scripture: Old Testament, New Testament, Book of Mormon, Doctrine and Covenants. And there's other parts of those books, obviously, but really, like, I read them from cover to cover every 4 years. I go through a book a year, and it's crazy because I think I know it, and then I go back to it and I'm like, wait, this story is vaguely familiar, but I am seeing it in a totally different light now. And it's because of all of the life that I experienced in the 3 years between reading those stories, right? So, if you can imagine Heavenly Father's wisdom in having us repeat even just the Bible, reading it every day and going through those images in such a short amount of time, that repetition is rewiring our brain to the truth of the creator of the universe. Whoa, if there's any kind of teacher that I want, it's the creator of the universe, right? Like, he knows what's going on. He knows the truth. He knows what's danger and what's not, and he knows what I'm capable of. And yeah, he does. He knows. But he uses images to teach that to us because he designed it that way. And so that's what guided imagery is. And it is biblical. It just, I love it. My favorite. Okay, last thing that I'm going to say, and then we're going to be done here. How I discovered that God uses guided imagery is I was studying the Old Testament. I had studied the whole thing, you guys. I was almost to the end. It was Haggai. So I think that's like 3 to the last books in the Old Testament. And there's a verse in there that talks about how they would reap and sow not. So they planted their seeds, but nothing would come up out of the ground. And they would earn, but their money bags had holes in it. And so they would put their money in their money bags, but then it would just fall out, right? And I was like, whoa, that is a strong image. Can you imagine what that would look like to earn money and turn around and put it in a bag that it's just going to fall out of? But people do that, right? How many people are not wise when they earn money and they put it somewhere, or they don't even put it in the money bag and they just go spend it, right? So many people live that way. And God, in his infinite wisdom, gave us this image and said, hey, pay attention to where you're putting your money so that it's not falling out of your money bag, right? Put it in a safe place. Take care of it. There's so many more images in the scriptures, but that was the first one. I remember I was walking and I was listening to my scriptures and I read that. or I heard it, and I paused them and I stopped in the middle of the road, and I was just mind blown. I could not believe it. I had been doing this guided imagery for a few years, and I had been reading the scriptures for years, and I had never realized that that is what the scriptures are, is a text of guided imagery. And that is how the scriptures change us from the inside out, is through guided imagery. So if you never watch another video of mine and you just start opening your scriptures up and going through the guided imagery that is in the scriptures, I promise you it's going to change your life. I've seen it change mine, and I want to testify of that. But why does it change it? Because it takes that thermostat that's in your brain and it tunes it, or it adjusts it to God's truth. That's what the scriptures do. It takes repetition and it takes time, because you have to have the time to apply it against your real world experience, right? But I promise you it works. That's what Psycho-Cybernetics is. That's what guided imagery is. And that is what I will be using in the other classes on this website. So thank you for joining me. And I hope that we create miracles in your life. If you do any of the other classes that I offer, I'm really, really excited for what I have to share. I feel that Heavenly Father has led me to this work, and I see it changing people's lives every day. And I'm so, so grateful for the experiences that I've had with Psycho-Cybernetics and guided imagery. And I hope that as time goes on, we can change your life too. So thank you for watching. If you have any questions, you can reach out to me on social media. I'm on Facebook, Chelsea Newman, and I hope to see you around. I hope that you have a wonderful day. Find joy, create purpose, live in the present moment. Thank you for watching.